Mike Liarakis, CEO of Bound Food Care. Through a multi-jurisdictional, county-wide effort to develop a regional food recovery program in Sacramento County, California, grant funding was provided that allowed an underutilized food production facility to serve as the county's first food repurposing kitchen. Now over 600 nutritious meals are produced every week from bulk excess edible food. This is a great example of how public-private nonprofit collaboration can efficiently reduce food waste and food insecurity.
In 2025, Move for Hunger delivered 17 million pounds of food to more than 600 food banks and pantries across the nation. And on Christmas Eve, we rang the closing bell on NASDAQ to raise awareness about food waste.
Hey, Refed, it's Laura Oxner with a simple gesture in Greensboro, High Point, North Carolina. We welcome you to our beautiful state. At a simple gesture, we celebrate the ups and downs, knowing small, simple steps make all the difference. From our trailblazing school district-wide refrigerated share program, to our hundreds of thousands of pounds of food recovered, to our Green Fork Award and more, we're shining a bright light. We know the time is now for food recovery.
Hi, my name is Dawson Graham, and I'm the Operations Director at Feed NC. One accomplishment in food waste reduction over the past year has come through improving our sorting process. We realized that a lot of our volunteers are first-time or one-time volunteers, so we needed to make the process more efficient and friendly for those kinds of people. In return, we were able to reduce our internal food waste by about 5%.
Hi, I'm Megan with Toward Zero Waste in North Carolina. We have been amazed by the support for our food recovery program in the Wake County Public School System. From March 25 to April 26, we have launched Share in 37 schools with 40 on the waiting list. Data shows each school recovers and redistributes over 7,300 items per school year. Additionally, momentum grows across our state to revise guidelines, which would support schools in recovering even more perfectly good food.
Feeding Charlotte had an incredible 2025, growing by 2,300% in just 24 months. We signed agreements with some of the biggest venues in Charlotte to rescue prepared foods, including Bank of America Stadium, the Spectrum Center, Charlotte Motor Speedway, and Truist Field. We have such great partnerships. Currently, 570 volunteer drivers rescuing food every day of the week. Great stuff happening here in Charlotte.
My name is Emma, and I'm the Sustainability Coordinator here at The Bulb. Come check us out. We are a nonprofit here in Charlotte, North Carolina, focusing on reducing food insecurity and food waste. We take surplus donations of rescued produce from our grocery partners, sort it all here, and this is where it all goes, right to our markets. In 2025, The Bulb diverted over 300,000 pounds of surplus produce from landfills right back into our communities.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to day 3, technically, of Refed. How's everyone's evening? Yeah? Good? Some good connections, good food. Can I just say I'm obsessed with Charlotte? I've never been here before. What an amazing city. Give it up for Charlotte and hosting. Unbelievable. And those stories here in North Carolina, unbelievable. We're going to dive deep into that today. Some of my big takeaways from yesterday, I just want to say I am feeling probably, I mean, I always do, but overly optimistic. After Dana's keynote, hearing from huge companies like Compass and Whole Foods and what you guys are doing with Mill, or seeing that, you know, Harlem Grown is hanging out with over a king from London. I mean, it's unbelievable that, like, we say mainstream, but food waste is mainstream. Like, we are over the crest. We are here. I can't wait to see where this room, we're not going to fit in a room this size in the upcoming years. And I think that's just unbelievable and something to kind of just continue to remember as we're kind of at the last kind of leg here of this incredible summit. This morning is dedicated to North Carolina, and I love that because as much as I love thinking global, it's so interesting to kind of hear what's happening local and learning from the opportunities, the wins, and all the kind of, you know, different approaches there are. I met an amazing woman you're going to meet. She's incredible, standing right over there. And then to guide us through that, we brought up Norbert Wilson. He is of the World Food Policy Center at Duke University. So bring him on up. Here we go, Norbert.
Actually, why don't the whole panel come on up? We'll introduce everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here. As the panel comes up, I just want to say a few words. It's such a great honor to welcome ReFed to the state of North Carolina, and I know you've been welcomed before, but I'll just say welcome again. I'm originally from Georgia, so North Carolina is a relatively new home for me, but I appreciate the state. It's been a good place. I have been so amazed by what's happened here at ReFed. I attended the meeting in Cambridge in 2016. It was not this large. It was wonderful and it was amazing and there was this enthusiasm and then it evolved into this. Congratulations, ReFed, for 10 years of amazing work. But you're not here to hear me talk about that. You're here to hear from our colleagues and friends in North Carolina. So I'm going to take a seat and join them and tell you a little bit more about what we're going to be doing this morning. So our team here was brought together by ReFed, and I must say when I first found out we had this group of panelists, I was so excited because I've had the opportunity to work with a couple of them and then learn more about the work that they're doing individually. We're going to characterize or put together this whole conversation around the idea of the food waste scale from the EPA. And we're going to talk about how we can move from one side, which is the less preferred side, to the more preferred side of managing and dealing with food waste. We're going to share some of the learnings that we've developed here in North Carolina. And we hope that this could be an opportunity for you to learn more about how we're doing it here, and hopefully it inspires activities and actions in your own communities. It's really important that we have a localized view in order to do the work that we're doing in our own communities. So with all that said, I'd like for each of the panelists to introduce themselves. Just tell us your name, where you're from, and the kind of work that you're doing. And if you don't mind, tell us where you fit on the wasted food scale. So we'll start off with Christine.
Good morning. My name is Christine Whitmire, and I serve as the Organics Recycling Team Lead for the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. And I'm out of the non-regulatory Division of Environmental Assistance and Customer Service. And out of the state recycling office, I naturally fall further down on the scale, more towards composting and anaerobic digestion. We work to build out our organic recycling infrastructure. However, we also have a Use the Food and See campaign, so we also have prevention. And through our food waste reduction grant program, we fund and support food recovery organizations.
Hey, good morning. I'm Demetrius Walker. I'm from Food Lion, which is a retail grocery store located here in North Carolina, in Salisbury, North Carolina. Me personally, you can tell from my accent, I'm from North Carolina. I grew up here. And what I'll say about Food Lion is we operate, we have 1,112 stores across 10 states, but we have over 500 stores in North Carolina. And inside of that, how we operate across the food waste scale is we operate in multiple places. So it starts with prevention inside of our stores, then it moves to donation of edible product, and then in the last resort is recycling of product that is no longer edible.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to North Carolina. I'm Alice Ammerman. I'm in the nutrition department at UNC Chapel Hill. You may have heard that Norbert's at Duke. There's a little I want to be on the team. She's buffering between us here now. We collaborate off the court, as we say. So. I also direct a Center for Health Promotion and Disease Prevention, and then, as I'll talk a little bit more later, I've founded a nonprofit and a for-profit that do some food waste work. I've worked at the dark green block, looking at design thinking for why it is that people waste household-level food, and then also I'll talk about what I've done with upcycling with my business.
Hi, good morning. Wow, it's really early to be talking to people, but we're here. My name is Gabrielle. I am from Apex, North Carolina. Okay, yes, the peak of good living. Where do I fit on this food scale? So my work, I'm a chef and cultural preservationist. I do some work with land stewardship. I also work with other farmers around the state to get food to folks through Tallgrass Food Box. But then I cook. So I love using kind of what I grew up witnessing, which was no waste. We didn't waste anything. And so, yeah, I think I'm gonna put myself in all of these slides because I think if there's anything I know about Southern folk, rural folk, is that we don't waste much. We know how to use a little bit of this, a little bit of that to make something beautiful. And that's what we're trying to do here. Thank you for having me.
Great. Now, I think if you haven't figured it out, this is going to be a great panel. So let's start with Christine. It is wonderful to have you here with us. We hosted a workshop in Durham a few months ago, and this is the first time I got to meet Christine, and I was so thrilled to have her join us. It's great to have someone from the state, the Department of Environmental Quality, to share the work that's going on. And on that panel, you said some things that really surprised me, I would even say startled me, about what's happening with landfills and how that relates to some of the work that's happening in food waste. Would you, not scare us, but would you tell us about what's happening? Prepare us.
Yeah, so we recently released a 10-year solid waste master plan, and in that study, we estimate that our 2 largest regional landfills in the state may reach capacity within the next decade. And why is this significant is because they take 25% of the state's waste. So that's a real risk of filling up that landfill much faster than we need to, because a recent waste characterization study that we completed, we estimate that 22% of what is being landfilled is wasted food.
Wow. So what can we do about this? What are some policy interventions? What are some ways that we can help navigate this challenge?
Yeah, so we already have a yard waste disposal ban in North Carolina, but I would love to expand that to include wasted food, of course, prioritizing donation first. But how feasible that is right now in this political climate, I'm not sure. And so I think we can also pull some other levers. We can also try and drive demand for finished compost here in the state, especially at the local level. And I was really intrigued at our Carolina Recycling Association conference. We had a speaker from Florida, and he shared a recent legislation passed at the county level that was a soil amendment rebate program. And so this county can provide rebates for new construction projects for soil amendments. They'll cover 50% up to $2,000 at the residential lot and $8,000 at the commercial level. So, how can we drive the demand for finished compost in the state?
Great. This is really helpful. I mean, it's not that we have to give up hope. So I'm interested to understand, looking at something like that as a policy intervention, what do you see as the timeline? How can the timeline for the capacity filling be changed? Are there enough policies in place to do that?
I think we definitely need to work on that here in North Carolina. And I definitely, at the state level, we're non-regulatory. Shout out to Lauren Hill. She is our regulatory side in solid waste section. She works to, get permits, quickly, review them timely. So we work closely together to kind of build out that infrastructure. But as far as policy, I think we can also do, a better job about studying possible tax incentives. So yeah.
No, that's great. The last thing I want to ask in this round is, what are some misperceptions that people have of navigating diversion and composting here in North Carolina? What can you myth bust for us?
Yeah, I have 2 that I would like to share today. One is that one misconception is that we have plenty of capacity to manage wasted food. We have over 58 permitted compost facilities, but of those 29 facilities that could accept food waste reported that they don't. So it's a misconception that even if you're permitted to accept that material, not all of them do, and not all of them want to, deal with the post-consumer food waste that, can have a higher risk of contamination. So I think we do have, a lot of facilities in the state, particularly due to our yard waste ban, but, not all of them are accepting that 22% of that landfill material here in North Carolina. And then I would say another misconception is that composters want to pick up your material for free. They want that material for free. It takes time and money and energy to, haul and process it. They are making a really valuable product that can support our $111 billion agriculture industry. But I have talked to some composters that people just assume that, businesses, they just want to give it away for free. They don't want to pay for it. We do need to consider, this as a utility service, a recycling service, and we need to pay for it and invest in it.
Yeah. There are no free lunches, huh? Yeah. No, thank you so much, Christine. I want to move on to you, Demetrius. Food Lion is an important retailer here in the state. As you've already introduced, you all are working on multiple spots along this wasted food scale. I know that you are doing work in preventing food from being wasted, to making sure donations take place. Could you tell us a little bit more about the work that Food Lion is doing to address these challenges of wasted food?
Yes, absolutely. And as we get started, just really as you think about food waste and what that means inside of a retail grocer, especially with the amount of stores that we have, it really starts with just reducing the amount of surplus that we have. And when you think about that, sometimes you can just be like, hey, that's pretty simple. Just don't throw that much product away or don't order that much product. But when you think about that many stores, and it starts in the supply chain around how much product we order into the distribution centers, and then how we handle that inside the distribution centers, how efficiently we get out into the stores, and then when we get it inside the stores, making sure that we have that product and we're handling it with care. We keep it handled properly with the cold chain. We make sure that we don't damage product. But then we're also getting that product out for our customers and moving those through as well. And then when we have products that are getting close on date, that we reduce those so that we can continue to move those through before they get to the point of not being sellable. Then when we get to something that's not sellable, then our ultimate goal is food waste diversion and really getting it into donations. So partnering with Feeding America and Second Harvest, we do quite a bit of donations, especially across North Carolina. But we even get to the localized level where we spend a lot of time with our local food banks as well to make sure we donate that product out and help feed the hungry. And then when we have product that either is the cold chain is broken or it's just out of quality, then that's where we move over to anaerobic digestion, where we partner with our group Divert, where they've recently built a center that helps serve us in Lexington. And what that really does is that keeps food out of the landfill. And what it does is that goes into anaerobic digestion and it gets converted to energy. And since we've had that, we have so much less food that goes to the landfill, and it goes over and we're recycling that organic product.
That's great, and it's really helpful to hear how you all are navigating these systems. Where do you see opportunities, the sort of best opportunities to actually prevent food waste? Where is the sort of, maybe not the linchpin, but where are those places where you see the most action happening?
Yeah, our opportunities, it really is just execution across the entire chain. So from a perspective, it starts with our buyers and our category management teams and buying the right product to get it into the distribution center, working with our vendors, getting product in that has the right shelf life when we get it in, and then getting it out of the distribution center to the stores as quickly as possible. Then when we get it in the stores, getting it into our coolers and freezers until we get it stocked. When we're processing, make sure we have clean processing areas, making sure our associates are following food safety processes so the food doesn't get damaged. And then when we get it out on the sales floor, making sure we're producing what's needed, don't overproduce, and use our tools that help guide us inside of that.
hearing you talk about this, it's clear that there are both technological interventions and sort of managing the cold chain, and then there are just human resource behavioral responses that you're having to deal with, that you've got to train folks to do this. How do you balance this sort of need for and the role of technology with the reality that people are, well, they're going to do what they do?
So what I say is technology is great, and it's our enabler, and it really is helping us get better from, like I said, from the start with the buyers and buying the right product in. It helps our stores, help give them guidance on what to order, and even down to the point that it actually predicts out what we should produce each day based off the customer demand. But it still ties down to our associates' behavior inside the store and the care that they show for our products, the care that they show for our customers, and really just getting to the point of that, making sure that our associates truly understand what food waste means, why it's important, what safe, quality, healthy food is, and how important that is, and really starting with that foundation, so then our associates make the right decisions in how they handle product because they understand the larger impact and what that means.
Yeah, this is really important. I know some folks that I've worked with, Ronnie Neff and some others at Johns Hopkins have worked on this with another retail chain, and it's important to think about how do you coordinate these different actors along the supply chain, but within the store, within the infrastructure of the grocer, just to make sure you can help them all move in the right direction, that it's valued and that is critical.
Yeah, and it takes time to really get people to understand why. And you think about inside of our store, we have people that's at various places in their life. You have some that are just kids that are just starting their first job. I remember back when I started, I was 16 working in a grocery store. I didn't know why I was doing things. I was just doing it because I was told to. So what we've really tried to get better at is really slowing down and educating and teaching people and helping them see the value. So then they want to do it because they know the impact that they're making versus we're telling them to do it and they're doing it just because we told them to.
No, that's really helpful. Thank you for that. I want to move to Alice. And I got to say, regardless of where she works, I have had a great deal of respect for you over the years, and I know of the work that you're doing, and we've even shared students, and so I'm really happy to have you here, Alice. Your work has touched on issues around public health and nutrition, but in doing that work, you end up doing some work in food waste. I'd love for you to tell us, how did that come about? How did you find yourself merging issues around public health and nutrition, and of course, managing and mitigating food waste? And
Thank you, Norbert, and appreciate you asking. Being a nerdy academic, I happen to have a few slides that I can show.
There's nothing nerdy about that.
So, is this the right slide up there? Yeah. So in my research, I've tried to address a lot of thorny issues when it comes to public health, and we have many of them. And here are a few: discrimination against black farmers, of course, lack of access to healthy food, rural poverty. A lot of this adds up to high rates of chronic disease. And then food waste on top of all of this, which could be something of an answer to this. So we've seen a lot of pyramids recently. This one is focused on health impacts. And you'll see at the top where we tend to spend a lot of time isn't addressing some of the fundamental system issues, which are down here. So what I've tried to do, and I love the phrase from our first session, great redesign of the food system, try to look at how to redesign things to make the healthy choice the easy choice rather than kind of wagging our fingers at people as to what they should do. So our team has created what we call the Med-South lifestyle program. A lot of people think, I'm sure you've read about the Mediterranean diet as one of the more healthful approaches, and a lot of people think that means you have to eat grape leaves, which is not necessarily a big win in North Carolina. So we've taken the principles of the Mediterranean diet and adapted them to Southeastern taste preferences. Lots of sweet potatoes, greens, other things like that. All of our materials are freely available online if you just Google Med-South lifestyle program. And from that, I wanted to do something more sustainable than just publish papers and only a few people read them. So I decided to create a company, a social venture that we call Equity Foods, and we make good bowls with their healthy frozen meals made from locally sourced food. So we try to support local farmers with that. The university is very strict about conflict of interest. They treat me like I'm doing a big pharma spin-out and will make billions of dollars one day, which is highly unlikely. So I don't have any equity in Equity Foods, and I'm now considered a volunteer advisor, even though I'm quite involved. And so back to the foodways scale. So what we try to do is, again, use local food, and we're working hard on using seconds that farmers can't sell currently. In North Carolina, I think, is the biggest grower of sweet potatoes.
Yes, it is.
And if it's left in the ground too long, a sweet potato can become the size of a football. But it's still good to eat. But most people don't really want to buy one of those. So we can make a lot of good bowls out of a few sweet potatoes. So our tagline is do good while eating well. So we work a lot with food insecurity programs. If people know about the 1115 waivers, we were supplying a lot of meals for that. That, unfortunately, in North Carolina was discontinued, but we're pivoting, as good entrepreneurs do, to other locations. And then interesting that we had the demonstration last night, cooking with Chef Zimmerman about fish. So I'm trying to expand this notion of reducing food waste among the produce to seafood. So I've become the fish carcass lady. I go to pick up fish carcasses and then try to figure out what to do with it. I've come up with something that I'm calling Carolina chowder to try to use what's in the fish. And another thing we're doing, just to wrap up, is trying to look at climate-friendly grains. We use brown rice in our bowls, but it doesn't grow very well in North Carolina. And these grains do grow well, but they're not used that much. So they're really climate-friendly, really nutritious. So we're trying to kind of ease that into the food system more by using them in our bowls. And that's it for me.
Great. Thank you, Alice. That was really wonderful to see all the ways that you have addressed issues of hunger and food insecurity, but also public health, because you are concerned about making sure folks get high quality nutrition as they eat these good bowls. I'd be interested to understand, what are some of the challenges that you faced in trying to get access to the seconds or the fish carcasses? I mean, how did you make that work, or what are the challenges you're dealing with?
That is a little bit more of a challenge than you might think, because farmers are so used to selling the best quality products. We are working with food aggregators to try to let them know that we'll purchase that. And there is a group, some of you may know, Society for St. Andrews. Actually, Michael Binger is here.
Michael.
And he's very dedicated to trying to get market opportunities for farmers, not just donating. So we're talking about how we can tap some of the farmers in his network to be able to actually purchase some of their seconds. For the fish, all the guys down on the coast think I'm crazy, but they're working with us.
Well, that's been working out well. I'd like to sort of wrap up this round by asking, we're not, measuring what we should when it comes to public health and food waste. Are there some better metrics that we can think of when trying to address these joint problems?
Yeah, I think measures both in nutrition. Obviously, being in nutrition, I like to see that this is having a positive health impact. For those of you who've never heard of the veggie meter, that's a way to measure vegetable intake. Happy to talk to you about that later. And then I think the economic impact is really important, both in terms of the adverse economic impact of all the waste and how we deal with it, but then there's also the fact that people are not having access to it to eat it. But then on the positive side, can we create economic opportunity for farmers and others by finding ways to better use what would be wasted?
Great, thank you so much, Alice. I want to turn to you, Gabrielle. Hey, it was really a pleasure to meet you. I hadn't met you before, and but then I learned about High on the Hog, and so my wife and I sat down and watched it was episode 2, and we got to see you in action. And I know of the work that you're doing because of, obviously from that and from meeting you. And you're approaching this issue of addressing food waste from a very different perspective. You're thinking about African-American communities, you're thinking about rural life. I'd like to understand how we can do better in addressing food waste by looking at it within our cultures, and understanding the value that we've placed on food within the communities where we're from.
Thank you for all of that and for this. There's so many, I feel like I have so many questions for all of you later. Yeah, so I think my perspective is so different as someone who's not an academic, right? Who's like in the communities of the community, who grew up witnessing how my grandparents made use of everything, and also how even in my work and my research now, there are communities who are practicing no waste by just continuing traditions that in some communities have become lost because they don't have access to land, they don't have access to the things that they once had, and just aren't able to have, you know, I think an example that comes to mind is a hog killing. Do you know what that is? Do y'all know what that is? A hog killing? Can you imagine what that is? It's the...
I've been to one.
You've been to one? Yes.
I was
More
we'll
birds.
talk later.
Okay. Yeah. I love that.
Oh yeah, no, we used to do it every 4th of July. Yeah.
So I didn't grow up going to hog killings. That is not something I witnessed growing up. I went to my first one in 2019 in Roxborough and met a community that has been keeping this tradition of processing their own hogs and surrounding communities' hogs. And what they do is every weekend in December into January sometimes, they slaughter whole hogs. They all come together. So the elders, the men, the women, the children, everyone has a job. They process whole hogs, they butcher, and they make sausage, and they commune, and they eat. And I don't know why I'm saying they, because it's we, you know?
Yeah, that's right.
And I think there's obviously a disconnection from a lot of these food traditions for many reasons. But I think a part of it is consumer culture and convenience has created a disconnect from some of these things that just were really vital, you know, and they gave us access. The misconception that Southern food is inherently unhealthy, that's not actually true. Like, we would grow a patch of mustard greens in the yard, you know, we would drink pot liquor, which is the greens, the juice off the greens. So the bone broth, you know, we had all of these traditions that were not bad for you. It's not all fried chicken. And I think returning to that through these traditions and through, like, you know, storytelling, you know, and being with communities and being in communities and centering those voices, that can kind of help get us back to some of those.
I really appreciate it, and I will just take a quick second to say, you know, my family would have, on 4th of July, and it was gendered, the men would have killed the hog, they would have processed it, there would be this open pit, I mean, very much like what you had in the documentary. They would cook the meat, the whole animal, through the night. The women would retrieve the meat to make multiple things, but one of the things I always remember, wasn't a fan of at the time, but like it now, Brunswick stew. And so, yeah, it was, and the tomatoes would have come from the garden. So this idea of all of these things are useful. Yes. There's no waste because you figured out what to do with this part or the other part.
There was no waste. The apple core was used to make vinegar. The flesh was used to make, like, my grandmother made apple jacks and applesauce. The skin was used to make jelly. You know, everything had a purpose. And this style of cooking is not something that I'm saying everyone has access to, but I do think that there are ways that we can incorporate those traditions through just a more intuitive style of cooking.
Yeah.
And being in relationship with the ingredients a little better.
Yeah, and it seems to me that when I'm hearing you say this is this idea of building up confidence. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We love confidence. I feel like, so my whole thing is I'm an intuitive cook. I've learned recently that there are people who need recipes every time they cook food. Are there any people here today that need recipes when they cook food? Thank you for your honesty.
I'm sorry. I love New York Times cooking. Kim, I'm appreciating it, but go ahead.
Thank you for what you do. But the thought of that is so exhausting to me. And I am so grateful. You know, I grew up in like I said, in an intergenerational household. So I witnessed both my mom and my grandmother. You know, they'll go in, they'll see what they have, they'll put this, bring this, you know, okay, I'll season it with this, I'll taste it. You're in relationship as you're going through the process. You're tasting, you're smelling. You know, I love witnessing them cook, and there's a confidence to that you build over time, and I am so grateful to have inherited that because I was there and I was witnessing it, but not to plug my cooking classes, but I can teach you confidence in the kitchen.
I have confidence in the recipes, but we are almost out of time, and I want to do a quick round. It's been such a delight talking to all of you. I'd like to help us as a group think through what are some things that we in the state can do to actually help us move around the food waste scale so that we're actually preventing waste. Do you have any parting comments that you'd like to add to that? And we can just take it round robin, whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I'll start off, and for me, with us being a large food retailer, for us is we just have to continue to get better, continue to refine our processes, continue to refine our tools, and then continue to lean into great people like the people in this room to help educate us in the places that we need to get better, and help provide us guidance on things that we can do to better serve our communities.
Yeah, continuous improvement. Yeah, I appreciate it. Anybody else?
So Christine and I have been strategizing while we're here about a particular problem. Do you want to start with that?
Yeah, just I think what can drive us more towards prevention is just standardizing our date labels and how they're interpreted at the state and local level. Yeah, just on Monday, Alice informed me that one county was okay with production date, and the county just next door was adamant about including a Best Buy date on that. So that definitely adds confusion. And do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, we make our bowls in two different locations. One is with a co-op that makes them in Orange County, and they're fine with just putting the date of production. This is frozen food, so technically there's really no end to the safety part of it. And then in a county just nearby, they said, well, they were kind of vague about it, but let's put 8 months on it for best. We did argue for Best Buy, but people still interpret that as expired. So all these programs that we're working on, we're trying to get food to people who need it, and they're feeling like they need to throw it away after that date. So it's a huge impact both on food insecurity and food waste. So we're going to figure this out, right?
Yes, yes. And I'll just add, too, that we also need to support our Towards Zero Waste programs, the Simple Gesture programs, to update our health safety plan in schools so that we can have share tables. I don't know if y'all caught the food service talk, but we are not allowed to, or it's not best practice to rescue temperature-controlled foods like milk, cheese, and yogurt. So we definitely need to change that and work on education in the schools.
Great. Folks, this has been a true delight for me. I hope you found it also fascinating and intriguing. We are so grateful to have you here in North Carolina, and I learned a lot in this conversation, and I thank you all for the ways you've talked about how the private sector, how state policy, how even what we do within our communities, within our homes can be means of actually addressing and preventing food waste. So with that said, let's thank our panel once again. Thank you all. We thank you all, and we wish you safe travels back home. And we are, Joel, if you'll come on up for our next panel.
Great job. That was so cool. North Carolina. Woo! My gosh. Amazing. Really inspiring. Speaking of inspiring, this next panel is going to blow your socks off, including who's moderating it. So the moderator is Ida Posner. She is from Hawthorne Food Ventures, also a ReFed board member, also one of the coolest people you'll meet. So Ida, do you want to come on up here and get the panel rolling? Give it up for Ida.
All right, and as I'm giving an intro, I'm going to have our panel come on up and grab a seat. So as Joel said, I have a really fun job today, and that is to help tell some stories of the people behind a lot of the solutions that have grown from an idea to really scaled impact. And I think one theme that's been very obvious over the past couple days here is that, first of all, food waste people are the best people, so congratulations on being part of that. But that also this movement really is about the people. And so today I'd like to get behind the AI summary of what you can find out about them online. Their bios are really impressive, really interesting, but we want to dig a little deeper and hear about their stories, what it took to get here, what they've learned, and not just the successes, right? We know that these journeys are not linear. There's ups and downs, there's challenges, and a lot of insight along the way. So I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves, their name, their organization, and then to share something that you've learned, some kind of anecdote, some insight, what helped you lay the groundwork for where you are today. And again, thinking through that journey, you rarely are doing what you pitched on day one. There's a lot of pivots, there's a lot of growth, so tell us something about what it took to get there. And Jessica, we'll start with you.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Jessica Regan. I'm the co-founder of FoodMesh. We're based in Vancouver, Canada. We're nationwide, and we're a B Corp, and basically we're a food service platform building tools and services to support the food recovery ecosystem. So we support businesses and governments in both the prevention space, but primarily in the diversion space. So we help businesses manage their diversion program, directing it to best and highest end use. So helping in the prevention space, then resell, donate, and then diversion. So the road to success has definitely not been linear. It's definitely been more of a windy trail. But it's been really rewarding. I think we've rescued over 100 million pounds so far and about 1 million meals a month. But yeah, I mean, one of the big things about the social enterprise, and one of the things is really staying disciplined and focused. You can't solve all problems at once. Everything feels like urgent, and you can't be having all these adjacent one-offs. If you're really going to scale, you just really have to focus and be disciplined. It's challenging, but it's worth it.
Thank you. Anna?
Hi, I'm Anna Hammond. I'm the founder of Matriarch Foods, and Matriarch works with, thank you, large manufacturing facilities and farmers to upcycle byproducts and surplus. And we have 4 channels of business. We make ingredients that we sell to other manufacturers, and we also use in our own products. We have a line for food service that we sell nationally now. We have a small retail line in the Northeast, which is to, sort of educate consumers about upcycled and how easy and delicious it can be. And then our 4th channel of business is products we make for food banks and emergency food that we sell, and sort of like looking at the business opportunity there. In terms of what sort of laid the path, I think for us, it was building amazing partnerships at the very early stages of the business with large manufacturers, so that we could, when it came time to scale, but also building kind of that relationship of possibility for the future and kind of inspiring people to think about what it could look like as a business opportunity. And then what have I learned? Trying to be more patient. I've really, at the beginning, I was like, we got to move. But really bringing people along, especially, in places where they're not used to moving quickly or, forces are against change. So, yeah, that's us.
All right, Tony.
Good morning, everybody. I'm humbled to be here. I am Tony Hillary, and I consider myself the accidental founder and now CEO of Harlem Grown. Harlem Grown was actually an accident. I was looking for something to do at a change of life, and I was reading about quote-unquote underserved schools and underserved communities, and I couldn't believe what I was reading. One day I walked into a school randomly and to volunteer. And I met children who changed my life, and 15 years later, I'm here telling you. So what Harlem Grown does, hundreds of millions of people in this country live in cities, and they're very disconnected from everything that we talk about here. And I found that really magnified in Harlem through the eyes and lives of elementary school children, ages 5 to 11. They go to schools with no services. They go to school and they get their basic meals in school. Schools have no art, music, or gym classes. It's really, really tough in the middle of what we call food deserts. And people like us walk into a school like that and wave our finger and say, oh, just eat healthy. A kid will look at you and consider Diet Pepsi and light Takis chips as healthy. And that was confounding. And I was introduced to a medical report called The Social Determinants of Health that tells you in no uncertain terms those children are expected to live a decade less than mine, who live a mere 20 minutes away because of the zip code. Now, how do you unpack that? Across the street was an empty lot. It was used for a lot of illicit activities. The kids were afraid of it, directly across from an elementary school. I got it from the city, started cleaning it. The kids came and helped me. 6 weeks later, me and 50 little people pulled everything out. A little girl pulls on my pants leg and says, why don't we plant something? And we planted it. I never planted anything in my life, but I couldn't tell them. So as they started planting it, it started to grow, and they started nibbling it and eating it. But then they liked it. But then you can't buy what they just grew in that community. So what to do? I surrounded myself with some great people, led by the great Shannon Morris right behind you, who came in and put together these most impactful programs you have ever seen. And anybody in New York, please come and see, because you will not believe. We grow tons of food. Everything we grow is free of charge. Nutrition education, cooking demonstrations, recipe writing, and it created an ecosystem in Harlem, New York, that could work anywhere in this country. We can get more into it later because it's a pretty long story, and I don't want to hijack it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Regina Harmon. I'm the CEO of Food Recovery Network, and every time I'm on the stage with Tony, which I've had the pleasure of doing so many times, I cry. And Tony reminded me, I don't know if you remember this or not, but Tony reminded me so long ago, I was like hearing this story of, little kids who just deserved better, and Tony's story of helping those kids who knew they deserved better. I'm crying, and he's like, what are you crying for? They're not crying. They're doing something about it, So I tell that story so often, and I carry that with me. So Food Recovery Network, we are the largest student-led movement that's fighting waste and hunger in the United States. We are very much student-led. We have over 220 chapters in the United States of incredible young people who want to be the change. So they see on their college campuses a lot of prepared food that is made and then discarded for no reason at all. But they also know that in their very communities, because hunger is in every single zip code, that people are unnecessarily experiencing food insecurity or hunger. Food insecurity is a technical term. Hunger is something that, many of us have felt, just maybe because we've, forgot our lunch, at work or whatnot, but we know what that feels like. And so they know that their neighbors, their fellow students don't deserve to have that experience. So they packaged up surplus food and bring it to nonprofits in the community. Today, we've recovered over 24 million pounds of food through the power of young people. And, I would say, I've been at FRN for almost 11 years now. We started in 2011, and through this movement, of so many incredible organizations working to support people who are experiencing hunger for the systemic reasons why people are hungry in the United States right now, 47.7 million people, it should be zero. Just through the power of young people, over the course of my time, I think of it, I have this concept of the diagram of yes. And so my anecdote is, when we think about, the rhizome growth approach, so you think about lotus flowers or lilies, they grow, kind of horizontally on the ground, and then they kind of pop up and they shoot up in other places. And that is our movement at Food Recovery Network, because over the course of so many years, our student leaders have heard, no, you can't do that. No, you can't recover food. No, you can't bring that food over here. No, 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 no. And they've turned all of those no's into yeses by collaborating, by being persistent, by being creative, and just knowing that what they want to do is the right thing to do, and then inspiring other people around them to also do the right thing with our beautiful surplus food that this, United States creates.
Beautifully said. Thank you. So we're going to dig in a little deeper on a few of these topics. And as you can tell, amazing stories here, so highly recommend you reach out and learn more about these really remarkable people afterwards. But Jessica, I'd like to circle back to something we were talking about earlier. You've talked about shooting for the gap and really finding where your strategic fit is. And I should share, everyone up here has been doing this for a long time. So they've achieved a lot, and it's also been a real big build over many years. And so could you talk about a moment where you really had to figure out, yes, this is what we're focused on, and this is what we're not going to do, and how you made that strategic decision?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the hardest things is saying no and moving things off the table. It's really difficult, especially if you're passion-led. But, I look back to 10 years ago when we started, and our North Star still rings true, but how we get there varies. So we started out with an app, invested heavily in our technology, and really relying on developers and slow to pivot. And then we realized that our true value is actually not just creating another app, but actually being the connective tissue of all of the other networks. So our name is Food Mesh. The idea is that we want to be the network of networks. There's a beautiful upcycling network, and the food banking network, and the Salvation Army, and all these beautiful, corresponding, invisible, but powerful and mighty networks. And our power, I guess, is being able to connect businesses and governments to those amazing organizations and really getting there. And I think one of the things that I'm most proud of, I guess, as a B Corp, I'm not sure if folks are familiar with the B Corp, but it's basically a playbook or a guideline on how to build a healthy, sustainable business. And one of the things that we built in from day one was building in a revenue stream for the food rescue partners, because we see them as solution providers. And yes, while they're benefiting from the donations, they're also providing a huge public service and value. So we designed a model that works with them as subcontractors, and we do about $70,000 a month to our charity partners that we work with, and that gives them predictable revenue. It allows them to, everything's very structured and fair, and we find that these food rescue partners are actually becoming almost our sales force. Like, they're asking us to bring on other donors because they're getting more food, it's more structured. And so a lot of businesses wait until they get rich to give back. We built that operational model in day one. Because the circular economy, we really also need to think the economic model. So that's the thing I'm probably most proud of. But that's not where, and I would say that there's lots of pivots along the way. And I don't know how many of you are aspiring entrepreneurs in the room. And yeah, there's a lot of challenges. I certainly don't want to discourage you. But the biggest thing is staying true to your North Star, but listening to the market signals. There's one thing about being stubborn and saying, no, we're going to go. But you also have to listen and adapt and look at what other people are doing. This space has evolved so much over the last 10 years. It's an evolving space, and figuring out, shooting for the gaps. What are the problems that are not being solved? And look at the people who are doing things really well and support them. That radical collaboration is what we need, and that's kind of our path.
Incredible, yes. Love it. And I think a couple themes you touched on there are these partnerships and building your networks. And Regina, I think, first of all, Food Recovery Network has been around for 15 years. And if you do the math, Refed's at 10, so that is 5 years more than Refed. You've been doing this a long time. And so as we think about partnerships, as we think about really scaling that network, you are working with college students and these broad networks of students, and then they have to convince people in leadership positions that this is the right thing to do. And I think we all agree food waste is an important issue, but getting people to actually act on that is a different story. So talk to us about how you've been able to overcome maybe some hesitations on whether we can really invest in youth and have them be the champions, and then how you've gotten that to scale to those decision makers.
Great question. And I always say, I was just talking about it this morning with some of the awesome staff at Refed, about any movement. Young people are always at the forefront of those movements. And so I have a long, inherited and ingrained belief in the power of young people, and young people at heart, of course. I've been doing this for a long time, so I am a little bit of a, auntie, I think, around the FRN channels, but I think with our young people, the dedication of that mutual aid, of helping their fellow student bodies, of helping people in their neighborhoods, of seeing people when we've all been sort of taught to not see the suffering, big and small, very overt and behind the scenes. The students, leaders, they don't want to look away from that. And so I always say to people, we're trying to feed people, so knock me off my pedestal. You're going to disagree with me on this? And I think a lot of times students, when they are really putting all of these things together and seeing these huge problems that, again, we've all inherited food insecurity, every single one of us. We're born into a place that allows for food insecurity to occur. It's part of the system. And so we don't give a lot of tools for people to, do we actually want to eradicate it? And so students take it on themselves to be part of something that's going to make a change for the people around them for that day, for that week, for their time in undergraduate work. And so they already come to us with this, this feeling, with this fire, and it is about working in collaboration. It is about, being persuasive, because sometimes I say the quote-unquote adults, they do say no a lot because they are worried about being sued. They are worried about the accountability of young people to be there consistently to recover food. They are worried about their, a lot of times when we think about big spaces like this, we train people in a certain way, and at the end of their shift, what we do to the folks who work so hard to make that food is we tell them, now throw it away, because that's the easier thing to do. That's the thing that we've been training everyone to do. And so students come into this with, we have the time, we have the willingness, we have the love to support you in doing something different. And I just think that non-judgmental aspect of it, the love and the heart, and the, hey, I have some sweat equity in this to make it happen, really, I think, has convinced a lot of people. It has convinced, thousands of people, and we want to continue to do more of that so that food recovery becomes the norm and not the exception. And a big shout out to Refed for all of the data that you've been able to provide to us so that we do have that persuasive argument of what it can look like when we do the right thing and what we know happens and is happening when we don't do the right thing.
Well said, and I'll also add harnessing the energy of young people too. Someone who's perpetually tired. Love that. So, Tony, I want to zoom in now, right? So we've talked about some of these really scaled networks and large organizations. I'd love to hear how you've built what you're doing from a real community need rather than necessarily a market signal, and of course those can converge, but tell us about the community angle here.
Okay, like I said before, this is an accident. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have anything. I was killing time. And I will be 100% honest. I was born very privileged in life, and my parents did a great job protecting me from the realities of the world. I had a lot of friends who lived a lot differently than I did, and I thought they just didn't have money, right? So I got there on my high horse, and I walk into this school to teach people and to show people. That lasted about 2 days. I was dressed down by a total stranger, a parent who I've never seen before, and she was right. Who do I think I am? I'm not even from there. And from that, I quit, and I went home, because in those 2 days that this woman felt comfortable enough to talk to me like that, you would have thought I knew all 400 of those students since they were born. In 2 days. It's against everything we know as parents, stranger danger. They gravitated to me like bees to honey, and I'm like, what is this? And that's where I connected the dots. It was this connection. So I went back very humbly, and I didn't say anything. I just listened. I was there every day working in the lunchroom, watching the kids, learning from the children. Children tell you everything, things that you don't want to hear. You hear everything. And from that, I just responded. So, eat healthy. You give a kid some kale. What's kale? How do I prepare it? What's the value of it? I mean, so going all the way back to the beginning 15 years ago, it was a step by step, one foot in the other, addressing what was needed in the community. Because when you're in the community long enough, they're going to tell you what's needed. You don't have to guess. We don't have to come from our privileged spheres and teach and engage and all of that. They will tell you clearly once they trust you. And when you stop talking and you listen, they will trust you and they will bring you in. 15 years later, thanks to Shannon and team, we have everything that's needed in these. Stop shaking your head. Everything that's needed. It's not just the food. It's just for a fact. For every child in an after-school seat in Harlem, there's 6 kids waiting for a seat. All of our parents work. They usually have 2 jobs. Kids get out at 2:30, parents get off at 6:30. We lose these kids in that gap. We have a self-funded after-school program. Whenever schools are closed, spring break, winter break, we have break camp. We have summer camp throughout the summer. We keep our kids close. That's how we grow the next generations of advocates, not just for themselves, their community, but more importantly, the planet. It's not just the magic wand, guys. You just can't say, oh, just do this, just be this. If it was that simple, it wouldn't exist. So it's one step in the other. 15 years later, we have dozens of kids, first-gen and 4-year universities, in some of the best schools in this country, studying to be PhDs in social work, educators, environmentalists. Sorry, guys, no finance or business majors. And it's not a coincidence. That's what happens when you grow people, and that's what we do.
Thank you, Tony. And don't worry, it's still a safe space for finance and business majors. Big tent. Perfect transition, actually, because Anna, I would love to hear your thoughts on the intersection of philanthropy and business models here. You've done some really creative work at Matriarch. You're serving a lot of different markets. And in the time that we've known each other, I know there have been a lot of decisions to figure out exactly what that product market fit is and how you layer in the impact. So I would love to hear your perspective there.
Yeah, I mean, I come from the nonprofit world, and I am still have to meet someone who's gone from nonprofit to business. There's so many people who go from business to nonprofit and bring their strategy and, you know, whatever, all these things. But it is a great training for running a social impact business, because in the nonprofit world, as so many of you know, you have to, you know, account for every Kleenex you're spending, you know, and you have to report that to your board. And so when you have a startup, it's the same thing. It's like staying lean is so important. So that was the inspiration for the business, was to build a business that could create more equity in food systems, because everyone wants to be able to eat, everyone wants to be able to pay for their own food, and also farmers need income. So, you know, while philanthropy has a huge necessary role, an affordable life is, you know, the ultimate goal that everyone can do. So I think it's sort of, I was thinking more about like the role of philanthropy in business. And for us, you know, we received grants, or we wrote grants and received them, quite a lot of funding, working with nonprofits to build that channel of our business that would be a business model for nonprofits. And I just see like all the channels of it have to work together because it's sort of a microcosm of the way that the world works. So I think that, I don't know if I really fully answered the question because I was sort of thinking more about like the role that philanthropy can play in business development for social good. And we really sort of live and breathe that in our business.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think one theme that's been coming up over the past couple of days has been, we all acknowledge food waste is a solvable problem and a great issue to work on, and it is how do you get people to make it their priority? How do you get this into the goals of leadership? How do you get people to pay for products that help us solve this problem? And so I just encourage everyone to think about that as we look forward to the next 10 years, is we've made a lot of progress in getting this to be in the mainstream conversation. How do we really think about scale? So with that, really quickly, closing round, we'll start with Jessica. For everyone, what's one thing you're betting on for the next 10 years?
Just more of this. It's a groundswell. And, you know, like I said, my snapshot in time's 10 years in this space and just watching it grow. This is my 6th refed, just watching the you know, and it's just so encouraging, and it's more in the conversation. And the only kind of silver lining with food waste is the fact that it is one of the most unifying topics. Every human on a visceral level agrees that food waste is bad. And so we've really got that going for us, right? It's a bipartisan, doesn't matter your socioeconomic, your background, anything. It's a very unifying topic. And so I think that we just got to keep the conversation going. And again, about the value, you know, unfortunately to cost or compliance, to get leaders to actually put this on the radar, there's public pressure, social drivers, regulatory pressures, and then of course cost savings. If it's on the P&L, you're going to get the attention of the business leaders. So I think we got to stick to those and just keep going.
Okay, lightning round. You got to make it a tweet. Everyone else. Anything to add?
Okay, the tweet is, you know, an explosion of scaling the solutions that are already in this room. That's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, and I would like to add, I would like to close the gap. I've been to every refed. I've been here for the beginning. The Finks also seed funders for Harlem Grown. I remember when Betsy had the idea. So I would like to close the gap because all the stuff that we do at this conference is so up here, and there's so much work down there. It seems to be a big gap, and I don't think the gap is too big to fill. We can do it, but we have to invest in our children.
Echoing that, I'm betting on young people. I'm betting on food recovery becoming the norm. I'm betting on all of you to find a location that needs a recovery plan and getting in touch with the people that you know that can do something about it to make a recovery plan in place. So I'm betting on all of you today.
Love it. Well, with that call to action, please join me in giving a huge round of applause to our panelists. Thank you all so much. And I'm actually going to turn the mic around a little bit. And we've been hanging out with Joel quite a lot the past couple days. But he's been humble because he's also a founder. So I'd love to hear more about Homemade. For those of you who aren't aware, you need to go check out a cooking class with Joel. He's built this incredible platform. But tell us about it.
Yeah, well, first of all, that was really moving. So Refed's 10 years. A lot of those amazing companies are 15 plus years. Homemade is 5 years old. We are one of the largest cooking class platforms in America. So every year, you can kind of think of us as like Peloton, but for cooking. So every year...
I'm so here for this.
That's what we are. I mean, I'm one of our instructors. I'm also the founder, but we've got 19 others. And we have about 20 million people who cook with us every year, and it's all for free. Our core belief is the more you cook, the better you live. And so we want to kind of bring that back, and I heard echoes with Gabrielle, and just everyone says that, right? And that's so core to food waste. And so that's why we started Homemade. The way that we make money is we work with mission-aligned brands. So we work with a KitchenAid or CPGs, and then we incorporate them into the class, so it's a win-win for both. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at today.
I love it. And then to bring in the food waste angle, so we've been talking about, everyone gets it, food waste is bad, but what do I do about it, right?
Yeah.
And so if you have a fridge full of food, you're trying to figure out a recipe, how can you help them out with their food waste problems at home?
Yeah, so what we learned is cooking classes, and kind of heard this in our last session, it's a privilege to sit down and watch a 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute cooking class. I know that seems crazy to us, But to have that time, to have that kind of ability, that's a privilege. And I want to empower everyone to cook, not just the top 5%. When you think about Food Network, who's watching those shows? Who has the ability, the time, the resources to watch cooking shows, right? And so how do we reach 95% of everyone else, people who are on SNAP, who are not getting that culinary education, and we want to be that. So can we put up the little graphic?
We sure can. I left the clicker over
Yeah,
there.
so this is our first product that we're coming out with. I would love feedback. We've soft launched it with a grocer in the Pacific Northwest, but this is called Homemade Guidance. And basically, the difference is this is not a cooking class. It's the difference between doing math by hand or math with a calculator. This is a calculator for dinner time. So what you can do is you can take a picture of your fridge and then text it to Homemade. We use all of our data, all of our cooking classes and our recipes, and we bring you to a place that helps you match that with recipes. We don't want you to have to think. I heard recipes and intuitive cooking. This meets you where you are. If you're an intuitive cook like me and can cook off the hip, this can serve you. But if you need a recipe, this can also serve you. And when we say we help you make the most of what you have, we don't just mean what's in your fridge. We mean what's in your bank account. We mean what's your doctor giving you. So we're partnering with a local hospital in Seattle. If you get diagnosed with diabetes, guess what? You get a brochure. So now you're going to get this really amazing guidance layer, which hopefully will take you to a really personalized place where you can make the most of what you have, ultimately wasting less and making more for you and your family. And so our next piece is we're teaming up with the Washington State Department of Health. They have a $6 million deficit for SNAP. We're helping them raise that. We've got like 20 days left. And they're going to layer in our guidance to 1 million people who are on SNAP in Washington as kind of our first case study. So if anyone's interested in that work, we'd love to chat. But that's kind of our next hurdle. So, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Joel. That is so exciting.
Thank you.
And also, can I sign up? That's my next question.
Thank you. Thank you, Ida. And thanks for that space, you guys. Okay, so we're going to go into a networking break. And then it's kind of sad. It's our last breakout sessions, you guys, at 10:45. That will be downstairs. Before we go, we do have a great closing montage. Again, just kind of celebrating the 10 years. So take a look at this.
Wow, it's great to think back on 10 years ago when I was at the first food waste conference in Boston and was on a panel about making the business case for measurement. The mantra back then that's still true today was that what gets measured gets managed, and it's great to see that more measurement since 2016 is leading to less wasted food. And about 10 years ago, too, I was in the middle of leading with WRI the launch of the Protocol's Food Loss and Waste Accounting and Reporting Standard. It's been so great to see since then this global common language embedded in ReFed's work and used across so many corporate food waste programs and elsewhere. Happy anniversary, ReFed, and I'm excited to see what we can all do together in the next 10 years.
Wow, 10 years ago. Wow, I think I had some hair that wasn't gray, and I was just starting to do research in food waste. And you'd see my graduate student at the time and I had just published some very first articles thinking about how American consumers are thinking about food waste. And it launched a lot of great work and a lot of great efforts with ReFed over the years. Looking forward to more years and less food waste. Let's go, ReFed.
Happy 10th anniversary, ReFed. 10 years ago, on the eve of the launch, I was triple checking website links, confirming the agenda. But honestly, I was also really nervous. I was wondering how the roadmap would land and how it would be received, and whether we'd have the impact that we hoped that it would have. And today it is beyond what we could have possibly imagined. What started as a roadmap has truly become a movement, and the tent just keeps getting bigger and bigger. So a huge congratulations to everyone who's been a part of this journey. This is what real change looks like, and it's amazing. So congratulations. Here's to the next 10 years.
All right, thank you all. Have a great networking break. We'll see you back here at noon for our closing session. Thanks all.